So here is my atypical story, which started over 40 years ago. I had a random discovery of a severe vision distortion in my left eye, and the specialists were very unsure, but suspected a detached retina. Luckily, one of my specialist's uncle, who was an American pioneer in retinal detachments, was visiting him for Christmas, and he asked him in to examine and consult on my case. What he did was recommend that I get evaluated to use through an advanced technology, which was ultrasound. This was like 40 years ago, remember? And this was available only at Will's Eye Hospital in Philadelphia. So I went to Will's Eye. It wasn't a detached retina, and instead it was a tumor, and my eye was removed. At the time, I was told, and maybe it was because I was young, but I was told that it was a precancerous or a non-cancerous melanoma. And I know that's an oxymoron now, but it was fine for me then. And there was no information highway then, and luckily I'm not defined by statistics. So other than an annual eye checkup and an x-ray and blood tests, which I continued for 25 years, I went full speed ahead with my life, no looking back, and more or less was following the rules of the road. I competed in sports, finished public and high school, got my driver's license, completed a phys ed degree, worked at U of T athletics department, received a business degree, got married, started a marketing career, mourned the passing of my father, had a child, built a business as a marketing consultant, and relocated my mother across the country. And finally, my GP, who had a knowledge of my history of this precancerous melanoma and gestational diabetes, and knowledge about the cancer referral system in Ontario, approved my decision to immediately go to the emergency room upon getting back to Toronto. So now I feel more like a crash test dummy. I'm not in the driver's seat, and I'm speeding towards a brick wall. So I'm in an emergency, armed with my disc results. The acute pain has returned, and I now have shortness of breath. I get admitted so I can have my biopsy and diagnosis, and I was placed in isolation because I just returned from a US hospital. And because this was the old normal, I was still working, sending emails via my phone, keeping everybody at work in line. Then I had another detour of ketoacidosis because my blood sugars went way out of whack. And I was fortunate that I was in the hospital setting because ketoacidosis can be potentially fatal. That resulted in a really disoriented stay in ICU, and then an atypical diagnosis of type 1 diabetes or juvenile diabetes. So I got stabilized, tests and scans, and on Christmas Eve I learned how to inject insulin and had my lung biopsy results. The former was anticlimactic, even though I really hate needles, and the latter was the beginning of the new normal. And the new normal for me immediately became a roller coaster. I met my oncologist for the first time, and I had a diagnosis of melanoma that had metastasized to my lung, likely to my liver, and the likely primary source was my eye. But we still didn't know because I kept talking about, well, it was precancerous or non-cancerous, so they didn't know what I was talking about. They were quite confused. And my husband and I had very blunt questions, and we got a very blunt response about the prognosis, that there was no effective treatment or cure for uveal melanoma, and that I had 6 months to 2 years to live. Well, we had to take a huge gulp, and we had to take an immediate get a grip, because my medical team was trying to spring me from the hospital overnight so I could surprise my 13-year-old and be home for Christmas. So we had a very abbreviated Christmas morning because I got called to come back to the hospital to start my 5-day course of radiation treatment. And then I spent another week of up and downs, enrolled in a very promising clinical trial, had a liver biopsy, and had scans of my brain, breast, and bone come out clear. So 2013 started out as the year of getting my affairs in order. And had many critical discussions with my husband Carl, updating wills, organizing finances, even some preliminary funeral discussions. And then learned much more about the disease. I linked with my doctor from Will's Eye, and we did get the confirmation that it was uveal melanoma, and got the specifics around the diagnosis, and then also got the confirmation that I had not one, but 2 liver tumors. So, accepting reality does not mean accepting defeat. In that same period of time, we had planned to renovate a house, but instead bought, moved into, and created our new dream home. I hosted a baby shower with my mother-in-law in this empty house. I connected with friends, family, on countless drop-in visits, potluck, takeout, and prepared dinners. Spent time with my ailing mother in Vancouver, and I cheered at my son's stand-up comedy and school band performances, and did something that I thought was not going to occur, attended his grade 8 graduation. Then he had to get back on the roller coaster of treatment plans, risks, and rewards. Surgery was not an option because I had multiple sites. There was a risk that the sites would grow while I was recovering from surgery, or that new sites would develop, or that my quality of life with what little time I was supposed to have left would not be that great. Chemo was ineffective, and some US-based, I would say, more experimental treatments had the similar risks of surgery, were cost prohibitive, and not yet proven. However, I was enrolled in this promising MEK inhibitor trial, like Dr. Butler was speaking about, which interrupted the growth pathway of the tumor and was, at this point, after stage 1, had shown to slow the tumor growth by 50%. So, all along through the disease, my impairment, I haven't had many impairments based on the disease, but it's more based on the effects of the drug, despite dosage reductions. I've had some serious but false alarms, side effects for my heart or my vision and my good eye, but the majority have been nuisance side effects like profound fatigue, swelling and stiffness, rashes and sores, but I'll gladly put up with them because over a 17-month period, I was progression-free. The existing tumors were the same size, I had no new growths, and I had a life. So the roller coaster slowed down, rolled into the platform, and the team reviewed my case again. And this time, the risk-reward balance was tipped in the favor of risking surgery for the reward of a cure. So we strapped back on to another dramatic roller coaster ride, and on September 2014, I stopped my trial drug and began what was supposed to be 3 surgeries in a year. I had greater than 50% of my left lobe of the liver resected, and in 2 months, not 6, a wedge scooped out of my right. And while I was aware of it, it didn't really have any meaning until now, but the liver regenerates. So even having over 50% of my liver removed, within 2 months, I was well enough to go back in and get some more taken out. The lung tumor was in a tricky location, and by the time we got around to taking it out, the strategy had changed from cure to trying to buy more time. But unfortunately, they discovered when they went in that the sac that covers my lung, the pleura, was impregnated with disease cells, so they took a sample or biopsy and closed me up. So I was researched pleurectomies, or how to remove my entire pleura, and trying to see if I could recover and live with only the right lung, not my left lung. But again, the risk-reward balance was out of whack, because I'm now back to multiple sites of the disease. It's a more grueling recovery and surgery, and we didn't want my immune system preoccupied with recovering from a grueling surgery while and not focusing on the disease. But again, we made another remarkable discovery, because I was off the trial drugs for a 7-month period when I was having my surgeries and recovering, and I was still progression-free in my lung. And we don't know why. Is it me? Is it the MEK inhibitor? We don't know why, but you don't want to, mess with success. Yeah, thanks. There's nothing to do. Anyway. So I'm now back on the lowest dose of the MEK inhibitor, and I'll remain on that until I'm not willing to put up with the more troubling side effects that I'm starting to see, or the tumors grow. But the prospect of immune therapy is very exciting for me. So they say statistics don't lie, but I'm not a statistic. I'm just a data point. Statistics are a collection of multiple data points, and each person associated with each point has their own unique experiences and outcomes. I dare to believe that I'm an outlier, and I operate on extreme outer edge of what is statistically plausible. Actually, Dr. Butler, he's not my doctor, but I did see him very early on in my diagnosis. When I was talking to him about my prognosis, he actually said, well, the way your case looks, you may not even be on the same graph as the other melanoma patients. So that made me feel good. He gave me a lot of hope. So I'm still in the new normal. It's new rules. I have to keep my plans flexible, and I always have contingencies. And all my new ailments always occur during a holiday, weekend, or when I'm out of town. No, not long ones. So the framework I work on is based on a slogan from a reality TV show. Outwit, outplay, and outlast the disease, plus business. To outwit, what I've learned from business, there's always a solution. More often than not, there are multiple solutions. As well, I have always made fact-based decisions, especially true in this world of risk and reward, and consultants are invaluable. In terms of knowledge and facts, I have ultimate confidence in my medical team. I trust them because they're the smartest guys and gals in the room, and they have the best access to the facts of anyone. And while I trust them for their facts, I also trust them as people. I've had a couple times when I've been very uncertain on what path to take, or I've been constrained by time on a particular risk or reward option. And I asked my oncologist twice and an entire surgical team whether they would make the same decision that they were asking me if it was their mother, sister, partner, or friend. And they said they would. I try and gather facts from other sources. I eventually got to the internet and Googled Uveal Melanoma. You have to be in a pretty good mood when you're looking on the internet, because some of the information you can see can be quite shaking. But I was able to find out that yes, very common for uveal melanoma to metastasize many years later. I use my lifelines. These are my friends, and they are invaluable. One friend linked me to a clinical trial site. Another's had her brother speak to me over the phone a couple times when I was having trouble making decisions about surgery. And her sister-in-law actually sent me the name of the uveal melanoma specialist that's top in North America, who happened to be the doctor that had operated on me when he was a fellow back in the day 40 years ago. She also accessed his email address for me, and that's how I got the information on my background. But he told me that I didn't hold the record for metastases interval because there's somebody else who got the disease 42 years later, not 37. I literally try, or my family literally tries to outwit the disease with humor. When I was in the TGH emergency room, clutching my IV pole with the painkiller drugs in it and trying to lurch my way to the toilet, I earned the name Thriller from the Michael Jackson song, video Thriller. So anytime I'm walking lurchily, my son calls me Thriller. Christmas 2012 is forever known hereafter in our household as the Christmas that Mom ruined. And we always have a giggle and had a giggle when I tried to play the "but I only have half a liver" card. So to outplay, it's all about teamwork and leading the team. I accept and ask for support. Friends and family are desperate to do something to try and help, and they take your lead, and again, they're your lifelines. I've had food, rides to the hospital, they helped me move out of my house and into a new house, and I'm fortunate to be included in a multitude of prayer groups. I I take the lead as a self-advocate. I know my case as well as, and my body better than, anybody on my team. I've been writing detailed notes about everything since I got out of the ICU and was capable of writing notes. I have all my printouts and my lab work and my scans, and I am very detail and control oriented, but they help me remember, they help me understand when I review them, and I use them to cross-reference details all the time. I'm also a very passive, not an active, no, excuse me, I'm a very active, not a passive participant in my care, and I ask questions all the time. The doctors in clinic are very busy, so you have to be prepared. When I met my oncologist for the first time in clinic, Dr. Joshua, he ran in and it was a huge lineup, you know, you have to wait forever, and I finally got in. And he came in and said, okay, we're going to start you on the trial, how are you feeling? And he went through a long list. And he was getting up to rush out the room to the next person. I said, wait, I have questions. And I had this list of, well, what about this drug? What about this therapy? What about this? And I went on and on and on. And he quickly answered all my questions because half of them were out to lunch. But anyway, and then he left. The next time I met him at clinic, he went through that same thing. Okay, we're doing this, how you feeling? I decided, and he was about to get out of his chair when he sat down, had a big smile, looked at me and said, do you have any questions?